Well, hey, Vision, we are doing things a little different today. This is fun, getting some student energy up here. I walked in this morning, and these students were just already just like bouncing around, energetic and crazy. I said, okay, that can be like contagious. I like that. So before we get into today's message, I want to take a moment of silence following our president's lead. And I appreciate that he said what's going on in Houston matters and that we as a nation should stop. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment of silence, and I'm going to close our moment of silence with praying for Houston. So if you would, bow for a second. Let's have a moment of silence. And Heavenly Father, in that moment, I think all of us probably turned our attention toward the blessings we have in our life. That God, I believe we all came this morning from a home with a roof, from a bed, from a house with electricity, from a refrigerator with food, God, with safety of traveling on roads. And God, we thank you for all those things here in our town. And God, we pray for those people in Texas that don't have those things this morning. Or even worse, God, they have loss of life, and they have that type of tragedy weighing them down this morning. So God, I pray for certainly your ministry, and especially, God, your ministry through Americans who are giving and who are going and who are serving to bless those who are going through such a difficult time in Texas. God, I pray for our leader, for our president, that he would have wisdom. I pray for the organizations like the Red Cross and Samaritan's Purse, and especially, God, I pray for churches around our country that we would bind together to go and bless those who are in need. And God, we again thank you for what we have in our lives, the many blessings we can experience today. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, guys, we're talking about students today, about teenagers, about middle and high schoolers. So let me start right here first. If you are in middle or high school, stand up. Okay? All right, now, and stay standing. Now, if you in your home have a teenager or a middle or high schooler, stand up. Okay? If you in your home have a child that is teenage or younger, I mean, even down to like little babies, stand up. Okay? If you have ever been a teenager before, stand up. Stand up. Because, you're laughing. You're like, man, I was a teenager years ago. Now, Nevin, the reality is you're going to influence teenagers in our church. And the reality is, Caroline and Michael, I mean, we each have a chance to influence teenagers, middle and high schoolers in our church and community. Okay, so go ahead and sit down. Sit down. And again, if you're watching at home on Facebook Live, I thank you that you are. Because hopefully you also have a teenager in your life, or maybe you are a teenager watching this. If they actually watch Facebook. Do you guys know about Facebook? Teenagers? Yeah. I know it's 1980s or something, but just kidding. But as we talk about teenagers today, I want to make sure you get this. Especially if you're new to Vision. The teenagers, they are not our church of tomorrow. We're not like, let's plan for that someday and let's give them some stuff someday. They're our church now. Because what is going on in their life now matters so much. It matters so much that some of the slides you saw and the pictures, and you see events and camps and fun stuff and serious stuff and small groups, all those things matter so much because these students, these teenagers, matter to us and they matter to God. Now, to understand teenagers, honestly, we need to understand teenagers throughout the years. So let's think about this. If, maybe you think back to the 60s, and I'm gonna use some pictures from stood out over time. In the 60s, we had, different things that people would watch and say, okay, anybody remember that show? Happy Days, right? Hey, who didn't want to be the Fonz, okay? You want to be the Fonz. And now, back in those days also, there were some issues with hair, though, okay? That some of the girls would be like, whoo, man, I don't know, that's a look. Then, kind of fast forwarded it up in the 80s somewhere. You had these teenagers, they were misbehaving, and they built movies around, what was that called? The Breakfast Club, yes. Detention on Saturday, really? And they also had, I think, some hair issues back. Hey, who was a teenager in the 80s? That's me. And, you had, right, ladies, the whole can of hairspray, you used it. Okay, then you fast forward some to kind of pre-2000s. You had, TV shows, I guess, 90210. I was not a fan of that. That wasn't me. Then you had, right after that, just the OC, that was, and that's not my kind of TV, but maybe it's yours. Then you fast forward, music-wise, I'm like, what do they listen to? And they're like, Dad, One Direction. So you got all this stuff throughout the years. Every generation will look at their teenagers and say, man, y'all are so weird. And then, like, my parents will look at me and say, Matt, you were so weird, okay? And really, as a teenager, I was really weird. I was weird, okay? I was weird. And my mom and stepdad should be here second service, and they'll say, thank God that Matt is not that weird anymore. He's like weird, different weird now. But, like, not weird like I was as a teenager. So I try to get it. I mean, really, when we talk to our teenagers, I try to understand that life is hard. In fact, I think for this generation of teenagers, it's harder than it's ever been. You've got bullying to a new level. You've got, purity issues and teenage pregnancy pressures to a new level. If you remember a year ago, just a couple corners around here, teenagers that were racing, that crashed into a tree in front of a home of a visionary, and by the time she got out there, she saw a teenager in his last moments before he died. Because of pressures and driving and the way they reacted, we had, in the last year, the student at Ashbrook who just felt the pressure too much. She jumped into 85. She died. These teenagers, they feel pressures through social media. You remember in our days, someone would make fun of you, and it's like one-on-one or maybe the classroom, and you go home and like it was over. And now it just spreads, through social media. You see these pressures that students have with the accessibility of drugs and pornography, way more accessible than when we had it, or even the generation before me had it. These pressures are pressing in on our teenagers. You talk about the breakdown of the family. Even as a church now, when we think strategically about speaking into families, it's not mom and dad and 2.2 kids. It's like, it's scattered, and it's mixed families and blended, and it's single moms and single dads, and it's so different now. And we need to adjust to that as a church. Screen time going up, outdoor play time going down. All these things that are pushing this generation in a different way than we were pushed. I think about in my neighborhood, and honestly, my neighborhood's a pretty decent neighborhood, and we did not feel comfortable with our kids going around the neighborhood and spending time in someone else's house that we don't know really well. Because you don't know who's in that house. You don't know who's visiting. You don't know what's going to happen in influencing these teenagers. And that, again, why we say we can't just wait and say, okay, let's just kind of contain these unusual creatures while they're teenagers until they can kind of eject into college and life. We need to invest in them now so we can help shape them in a way that gives them a chance to thrive against what all they're facing. So what can we do about this? You're like, man, that's heavy. Man, this is Labor Day weekend. Why'd you put something so heavy? Okay, let's start with something lighter. Something lighter like candy, okay? Candy. Because I'm going to need some help from some of our students. So here's how we're going to do this. Ideally, I'm going to come up with a high school boy, a high school girl, a middle school boy, and a middle school girl that will come up on stage and be a part of my game. So first of all, if you are a high school boy, okay, raise your hand. High school boy, high school boy. All right, okay, Nick, I see you first. Come on up here. All right, high school girl. Okay, come on up. All right, middle school boy, middle school boy, middle school boy, middle school boy. Oh, there's a hand back there. It's Julian coming up, and a middle school girl. Middle school girl. The girl's like, I'm not going up there. I'm not doing it. Middle school girls? Middle school girls? Is there anybody besides my daughter in here who's a middle school girl? Then Elena Vanderbilt, you are on board for this game. Come on up here. Okay, so y'all grab a stool. Grab a stool. Okay, so you guys are competing against each other. So if you hold that one, and you hold that one, and here's how we're going to do it. I got about 8 questions. And when I ask a question, if you know the answer, you stand up. First one who stands up, I'll recognize you. You get a chance to answer it. There's no penalty for wrong, but if you're right, then you get a point. We get to the end. Whoever has the most points, Nick, tell them what they get. Tell them.
$25 Amazon gift card.
Ooh, don't you wish you had? Okay. All right. And there are those nice partying prizes for the others, a box of candy for each of those. Okay, so here are our questions. Now, this is going to kind of get you thinking about teenagers now and teenagers back then. And we realize, honestly, we're all in this together, that we're really weird. Okay, we are all weird when we're teenagers. All right, now, first of all, from a national survey in 2017, what is teenagers' favorite food? Favorite food. Someone stand up. You get to answer first. Okay, and give her the microphone.
Pizza?
It is pizza. It is pizza. Okay, so 1 point for you. All right. Now we're thinking back. And again, crowd, you can't answer this, especially us older people, because we might know the answer. Which of these drinks was more popular, Coca-Cola Classic or New Coke? Nick?
Coca-Cola Classic.
Very good. Yes. Okay, so point for you. All right. Back to current day. In a 2017 survey of teenagers, what social network do they say is their favorite? Yes.
Snapchat.
Snapchat it is, but these guys are good. All right. 2-1. Okay. Now this one is visual. This one's visual, and I know all the people in here are adults. They're like, laugh. When you look at this picture, I want you to tell me, name this popular TV show from the 80s.
What the heck? Man, I was thinking like, do you?
Anybody? 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 Okay, tell them, guys. Murder, She Wrote. Oh, you don't understand me. Come on, that's like, just kidding. All right, number 5. What subject in school do teenagers say overall is their most favorite subject? All right.
Lunch.
Say it in the microphone.
Lunch.
Lunch. I'll give you a second guess because that's like on your report card. Is lunch.
PE.
Man, I think they were going with like academic classes. I'll give you another guess. Which academic class?
Math.
Math, yes. Well done, Julian. Very nice. Okay, another visual now. Another visual one. Going a little bit old school and new school. Name these 2 presidents. Julian's there.
Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama.
Wow, Julian has tied it up. Man, we're 2-2-2. Okay, 2 questions left. This one's going to take some of us back because we're talking about minimum wage. And back in the 80s, when minimum wage was down there, was minimum wage back then around per hour $3, $5, or $9 an hour? What was minimum wage? I think Julian just barely had it.
$3.
$3 an hour for minimum wage. Okay. All right, now we're going one more old school one here. So work with me on this. Try for this. Okay. In this Wendy's ad, what did one of these ladies say? It was our famous slogan.
I just saw this video on Facebook.
Come on.
Like, literally 2 days ago.
Nick, can you pull it out? You can tie it up, man, if you get it. Man? No? Elena? No, nothing? What did she say? Look at that. Okay. Well, Julian, then you are our winner. There you go. And you guys each get a box of candy. Thank you for participating. All right, there you go. And hey, let's have a hand for these teenagers. Okay. So part of what I want us to get out of that is, when we ask, like, adults, you laughing like, man, how could they not get Where's the Beef? Could you have gotten Snapchat? Could you have gotten Snapchat? Could you have gotten, the thing about math or pizza? Maybe pizza. But the reality is, when we think about teenagers, there's a lot of things we don't know. And honestly, when teenagers think about, I guess, us when we were teenagers, there's things they don't know. So let's figure it out together. Let's walk through this journey together, laughing a little bit, smiling a little bit, understanding each other a little bit, because being a teenager is tricky. It's tough. And that matters to us here at Vision. So let's talk about what I call the wise path. The wise path. Because, in life, there are so many different choices we get faced with. I mean, I think about, these 4 that are up here, they're making decisions about who they're dating. They're making decisions either now or soon about college, about jobs, who they're going to marry, things they're trying or don't try. And there are so many different paths they could take. God knows that there's a wise path. And for each of them, it's different. I mean, for Nick, it's going to be different than it was for Nevaeh. It's different, but for each of them as a teenager, there is a wisest path. And, we start planting these seeds actually in elementary because one of our basic truths is I need to make the wise choice. That matters to us as a church, that we would help them make wise choices so honestly they can avoid a lot of things that we went through. And they can truly live a way that is wise. Well, what is wisdom? I mean, wisdom, to me, basically is saying there's all these different choices. What is the best one? What's the right one? What's the one that God says is truly going to take you where I want you to go, where you're going to be ultimately most content and successful in life? That's the wise path. That's wisdom. And where do you find wisdom? Well, here at Vision, we find it in the Bible. Specifically, we find a lot of it in the book of Proverbs. This is a book written by the wisest guy. Besides Jesus, this guy Solomon was the wisest guy. You know, people in royalty would come for miles to come and spend time with him and say, please answer our questions. Help us to understand how to be more wise. And if there's somebody like that, I'd say, okay, let's pack up our students, let's pile them into 15-passenger vans, and let's roll over to see Solomon. We're going to talk to him about wisdom. In Proverbs, and I love this, and this is for all of us, not just students, there's 31 chapters in Proverbs. So I would challenge you at least once a year, take a month, and each day read one proverb a day. Whatever day of the month it is, you read that chapter. Particularly if you've got a hard copy Bible and you underline stuff in there and you date it so that maybe the next year comes around, you read a different chapter. Or you try it a couple times in the year, that you would dig into the book of wisdom. It will help you to take the wise path. I promise you, there's stuff in there for your marriage. There's stuff in there for your finances, your dating, your decision making. Listen to some of these. Proverbs 1 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Okay, anybody in here who's over the age of 20, have you ever felt like a fool because you made an unwise choice? I mean, let's be real here. I mean, I have, like lots of times. Those kids back there are saying, yeah, Dad, you have. And honestly, he has, and I have. We are fools. We say, I don't even want to listen to wisdom. I don't want help making a wise choice. When we just discard that, we're fools. And God says, let's avoid that. Let's get wisdom in your life. He says, when you fear me, when you are in awe of respect of me, you have wisdom. Proverbs 3 says, don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. I want a healthy body. I want a healthy life. I want a healthy marriage. I want healthy finances. God says, I will help you have better health in those areas when you seek wisdom through me. Continues, says, blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she's more profitable than silver and yields better return than gold. Okay, who wants some gold? Like if I had a bucket up here and say, okay, we're playing the next game for gold, you'd be like, I want some gold. Give me some gold. Again, if you're over 20 or 30 or 40, if I said to you, hey, one of those choices you made, would you trade gold to go back and have a chance to choose differently? And many of us would say, absolutely. The choice I made, the opportunity I missed, the thing I tried, the relationship I missed out on, man, if I'd have had the wisdom in that moment, you betcha I would give away gold to have a chance again, to have wisdom in that moment. And the last one says, if you're wise, wisdom will reward you. I love that because God is saying, hey, it's not wrong to want to be rewarded. It's not. He said, just walk my way. I'll help you find the right path, and when you walk the right path with wisdom, you'll be rewarded. And I say, God, I want some of that. I want to be rewarded. So, okay, imagine this with me. Imagine a teenager. Think in your mind of a teenage boy or a teenage girl that first of all reads their Bible. Okay, that's a pretty good start right there because they are pressed with so much information in their life if they choose to read their Bible. What if they also choose to pray? That literally when they feel stressed or have decisions to make or care about people and they say, God, I don't totally understand you, but I'm going to talk with you and I want to hear from you and I want wisdom from you. So imagine a teenager who reads their Bible and prays. Imagine a teenager who lets Jesus impact their decision making, their goal setting, their planning in life. They say, God, I want you to be a part of this. I want that in my life. Imagine a teenager who lives a life of purity, of sexual purity, and says, I'm going to wait. I'm going to be in the minority, but I'm going to wait. Okay, imagine a teenager who comes to vision and says, okay, these core 4 things that are in the lobby, I'm asking you to do that. I'm asking you to be a part of a church and connect. I'm going to be a part of a small group and connect with friends and ideally a small group leader. I'm going to connect. How about a teenager that says, I'm going to invest my life through serving? Hey, don't you love what Kylie shared up here? Said, hey, I serve back there with those kids. I serve in there with those kids. I give my life to serve. And I'm saying even more than just a teenager who does that at church, someone who does that with their life. Imagine a teenager like that. Imagine a teenager who, and I appreciate you mentioning this, that gives. That says, hey, I earned $100 at Food Lion. I'm going to give $10 to God. I'm going to do that. Not because I want to get something, but because I say, thank you, God, and I trust you. Imagine a teenager that lives a life of generosity, that they're at school and somebody's short on something, and they say, hey, I'll help you with that. I'm going to do something to serve you in the name of Jesus, a teenager that gives. And then our core four piece of inviting, imagine a teenager that believes enough in what we do here at this church. It says, look, you don't have a church home, or you're struggling, or you need some friends, man, come to church with me. I want you to do that. So parents, listen to this. Parents, if you have a teenager, or parents, if you have one younger, and you come across a teenager that does all those things I just listed, here's what you do. You get him to marry your kid. And you laughing, but when your kid goes and marries somebody who doesn't do any of those things, and you're sitting back saying, oh man, where did we go wrong in trying to shape our child to look for this type of person? And this isn't about a report card or a checklist. This is about a heart issue of all those things I just listed. You say, man, I want my son, my two sons, or my daughter to find somebody with those type of life habits that I just listed, because that's going to give them a whole lot better chance to find the wise path. I'm telling you. So how do we help teenagers head down that wise path? And this is a learning opportunity for all of us in here of any age, because I believe we should have 3 key relationships in our life. 3 different kind of groupings of relationships. The first is what I call a Paul. A Paul. Somebody who invests in you. Somebody that you have strategically said, man, I see God working in Brad's life, so man, I'm going to hang out with him just a little bit more so I can learn how he's had a healthy marriage, how he's got a job that man, satisfies him, how he's raising his daughters. I'm going to hang out with somebody like that, so maybe just a little bit of what he's got. Remember last week we talked about the cup? Maybe a little bit of his cup that gets filled up can pour into me. We should strive to have somebody in our life that is that Paul, that mentor-type relationship in our life. It was said of Paul, he wrote it down and said, follow me as I follow the example of Christ. That's a tall order. That's a tall order. But again, picking on Brad in a good way here, I say, Brad, I see you following Christ, and this is not a cocky or arrogant thing, but I see him living out saying, follow me as I follow Christ. So I would encourage all of us to get a Paul in our life that will pour into us, because whether it's in Corinthians or like the book of Philippians, I'm going through it right now with some guys before work on Wednesday mornings. This guy Paul is writing about humility and contentment and patience. I said, man, I want more of that. I need somebody in my life pouring that into me. That's the first key relationship. The second one is a Barnabas. I talked about this guy last week, but a Barnabas is somebody that you're true friends with. If Paul is like this way, then Barnabas is this way. That you would have people in your journey that you would lock arms with and say, this is a true friend. This is someone who encourages me and speaks into my life, and honestly, I encourage and speak into their life. I love this passage in Hebrews that says, let us hold unswervingly. I don't even know if that's really a word, but you think about swerving. Man, in my life, I don't want to swerve. I want to hold unswervingly to something, to this wise path. And it says in Hebrews, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Now think about this word spur, because I know a little bit about this from out the ranch. There's times with friendships, you put your arm around them. And there's times with friendships where you got to spur them on a little bit. And spur, actually, this word means irritate. You're like, man, I don't want anybody to irritate me. Yes, you do, when you're not being a great wife. And you laugh, but when you got a friend who say, hey, how often are you home now? Are you ever home? Do you ever go out on a date with your husband? And you're like, man, that kind of hurts to be asked that, but I'm glad you asked that. And we need friends that are like right here with us that will spur us on so we would not swerve from where we want to go. The verse continues, says, so not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So make sure we're getting people in our lives that are encouraging us. Someone to pour into us, someone we can encourage. The third one is a Timothy. A Timothy, and that's who we're pouring into. So for the adults in our church, I'm saying, please join me in pouring into these students. But students, don't miss it. Because Caroline, God's still asking you to pour into somebody. You get your cup filled, and that's not just for you to have. It's for you to pour into a middle schooler, or you to pour into elementary, or like Kylie's, I'm pouring into the preschoolers. Great. Pour into them. This is someone that you invest in. And I love this verse. This is my life verse in 1 Timothy 4:8. I love it because it's talking about training. It's saying that, physical training is of some value. Taking care of this body and trying to, work out and be healthy and eat healthy is of some value. But spiritual training has value for all things, holding promise for the present life and the one to come. So what Paul is doing in that moment is he's looking Timothy in the eye and saying, hey, don't miss it. I know school's important. I know dating's important. I know having a job and a career is important. Man, but as much as you're trying to do these physical things right, don't miss the spiritual training. And he looks into Timothy's life and he says, you matter enough to me that I'll say the tough things to keep you on the wise path. Paul continues when he's talking to Timothy. He says, command and teach these things. He's speaking to this younger guy, Timothy. He says, man, don't let anybody look down on you because you're young. So I want to tell our teenagers this. Don't compromise and say, well, I don't really need to be walking with God that much. I mean, I'm only 17. I'm only 13. I'm only in middle school or high school. No. Set an example. I'm telling you, teenagers, set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith and in purity, and that life word or conduct. It's saying, set an example in all these areas of your life. And to us adults in the room, Paul's looking us in the eye. He's saying, this is on you. This is on you. Set an example for these young ones so that they will take it and they will set an example for the next ones so that truly in these areas of our lives, we would be known as people that love Christ in the way we live, the way we speak, and in our purity, the way we love people. That's who we are. And that's what you carry into school, saying, I'm not going to let people look down on me because I'm young. I'm going to set an example in that. And I say, Nick, go do that, man. Do that and set that example. For all of us, I want to encourage you to consider this week reading the book of 1 Timothy. Get in there and read those 4 or 5 chapters. Dig into it and say, wow, there's some things this guy Paul wants to teach me many, many years later. And here at Vision, the way this really fleshes out, we call it orange. Okay, we call it orange. We got this philosophy. And it's in just a book or a curriculum we buy or things we put on the wall. But this is the heartbeat of our church as we pour into the next generation. That we say there's 2 colors. And they can work fine on their own. But when you take the color of yellow, which is the church, literally the light of Christ, the light of the world, and you take red, which symbolizes the family, which means that in your home, I know it, you're getting love. There's red, there's warmth. You take these 2, they work independently, they'll accomplish some things. When you put them together, and you literally say, okay, as a family, let's partner with you guys. So your 2 kids will have a chance to be influenced by an orange philosophy. Because 2 combined influences make more impact than 2 separate influences. We believe that. And what we do here is say, whatever age your kids are, we will build up and train small group leaders to pour into their life, to team with you. And I look one in the eyes right here and say, thank you that you pour into her and you are orange with the Vanderbilt family. So I think about this concept. I want it to stir your heart. Say, man, all those things, Matt, you talked about at the start, the bullying, the social media, the temptations, there is a lot on the shoulders of teenagers. And adults, honestly, I hope you feel that. I know in this room we got some teachers. We talk all the time, the weight on these kids. So I want to interview for a minute somebody in our church who's got this. And Julie, if you'd come on up. Julie Hill, she is our small group coordinator in our student ministry. And we're going to talk for a minute about what this looks like in our student ministry, the wins, the efforts in it. Julie, thank you for coming to share. So let's just jump into it because, we had Chuck up here a couple weeks ago. We had y'all's family picture and everything. Y'all look great. We're not going there today. I mean, I don't want to put Chuck's picture up again. Okay? Just kidding. But seriously, let's talk about, your involvement in our student ministry. That's middle and high schoolers. So why don't you first explain, what you've seen or experienced, when of why orange relationships are valuable and what they can cause and what happens. Talk about that a little bit.
All right. Absolutely. Orange is very, very important. We have small group leaders here adults that come along, and they pour into the lives of the student. They're pouring in relationally, they're pouring in spiritually. So that is one great example. Through the small group leaders and then the small groups, they come together and they build this trust and confidentiality and basically a support group. So the students have an avenue, an environment that they can share these tough times that they're going through.
Yes.
The other thing is small group leaders, and as a parent, I treasure this. They are a safety net sometimes because, you know, we're going to be real. Sometimes our children are going to walk out and they're going to be in situations that could be dangerous. You know, they're going to be with the wrong people at the wrong time, the wrong place, doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And, you know, whether it's through guilt or shame, they're not going to feel comfortable calling their parent. So, you know, how awesome is it that they have that relationship already in place, that they could trust a small group leader to say, hey, can you help me out? You know, we don't want them stuck like that.
Yes, I love that. That matters in our family. It does. Number two would be, so give us some examples of a healthy relationship between small group leader and a student, or wins you see in our students. Kind of speak to that a little bit.
All right. From a group perspective, the small group leaders pour into their group. They have some group outings. They get together sometimes. Maybe the guys go play basketball. I know the girls have had some spa days. Just different things like that. Individually, they are sending texts. You know, we just had the first week of school. They've sent texts out. How was your week at school? How can I pray for you? Just great individual touches there.
I love seeing that. And parents, I hope you understand, you're not just dropping your kids off at Ignite. I mean, not just like, okay, just entertain my student for an hour or two. They're investing. They're saying, I'm gonna trust these small group leaders to invest in my students. We see it work. Okay, so how about if somebody potentially you wanted to kind of maybe test drive? So, okay, I would like to invest in our students. What would that look like? How would they do it? What does a test drive feel like? What does that role look like? Explain that.
Okay, so first of all, just to set you at ease, you do not have to be a biblical scholar to be a small group leader. I'm so thankful for that. We have the curriculum and the resources that you need. We have our small group leader like suggested questions for their small group time. You just have to have that love and that passion for students. So you also just ask one of us and we get you plugged in through the volunteer system. Yeah,
it's not hard. And just come to one of the ignitions, just hang out with us. We're not going to sign you to like a lifetime contract just because you walk through the door. Really, you come and hang out with us. Enjoy the music, the games. Just shadow somebody in a small group. And if it seems like a fit, just try it. That you don't have to know it all. You just have to have a heart to love students. So what else would you add, Julie? Anything else you want to kind of add to all this?
Yeah, just kind of touching on something you spoke about before. You know, we say our students are our future, our children are our future, and you nailed it. They are our now. And, you know, we tell them when they leave high school and go into college, you know, go change the world. Well, you know what? Our students are being world changers right now.
That's right.
Just within these walls of vision, we have students who are serving back there in the preschool ministry and with the children's ministry. We have students on the host team. Outside in the community, they're at
Terrace Ridge,
yes.
Gastonia Street Ministry. In fact, our students are going to run everything the end of September at Gastonia Street Ministry. They're going to speak, they're going to sing, they're going to serve. Our students will do that for the homeless.
And they helped outside the state with the Bucket Project.
Yes.
And, you know, stepping out into the world missions. We've had students going to Guatemala and Honduras. So they are changing the world. And how awesome for you guys to be able to come alongside them and be a part of that change.
Definitely.
It's a privilege.
Definitely. All right. Well, Julie, thank you, not just for sharing, but for what you do to invest in these students. Thank you, girl. Wow. That's great. That's great. Okay, so I got a couple next steps for you. First one is look for chances to invest in a Timothy or a Lauren or a Nick or a Chelsea. Look for your chance to do that. Don't just say, okay, well, somebody's got it. I know that ignition night, the building's like thumping and moving and stuff. Somehow they got it covered in there. Honestly, we need more. We need more because as God grows us and brings us more teenagers, we need people that will care for them. remember, you don't have to be a biblical scholar. You don't have to have it all figured out, social media. You don't. You just have to care for teenagers. We'll walk alongside you. We'll help you do that. And that's one formal way to do it. Honestly, the informal way is just dedicate your life to wanting to invest in other people. I talked about that last week, but specifically that you would pour into somebody who's not as far down the journey as you are. That's the first next step. Second, make sure that you've got a Barnabas in your life. I remember years ago, I was in ministry. I was talking to a guy who was struggling with some stuff. I barely knew him. I saw him in passing on Sundays and said, hey, man, have you got a friend to walk through this with you? And he looked at me and said, well, I guess you're probably the best one I got. I thought, man, I don't know you at all. I didn't tell him that. But the reality, I didn't know him at all. So I'm saying, please be intentional about getting a Barnabas in your life. Whether you get into a small group, a men's group, a women's group, a mixed group, you serve and meet people there. You come and be involved at events at Vision and get to know people and build a Barnabas in your life. You need that. I need that. And the third is evaluate how you are doing as a Paul. Honestly, take a look and see about your speech and your life and your love and your faith and your purity, and look in the mirror and say, how am I doing with those things? Because remember, you're the light of the world. I mean, things in Houston and shootings around our country and racial divides, all these things, God has sent us into the world. A world that's getting darker, He's sending lights to go and shine the light. So you as a Paul, remember the blue cup? Fill your cup and pour it out. That's your next step. And for all of us, the easy one, but it takes intentionality, is pray for these students. Pray for these students. Even if you don't know them by name, you're like, okay, the one girl who was up here playing the game and had a good answer, okay, I'll pray for her this week. I'll put her in my mind on Monday morning to pray for her. Say, God, take care of her at school. Take care of her family. God, help her in her relationships. You meet another student, or you know somebody, or your next door neighbor, or somebody that doesn't go to church. You say, man, I'm going to pray for that student. So I'm asking you to do that ongoing. In fact, during our last song today, I'll ask you maybe even to do it during the last song. We're singing about coming to the altar. I say, hey, if you're a student, I invite you then, man. Come to the altar. Take a knee up here. And if a student comes up here to take a knee, then I encourage you as an adult, come up here and put your hand on them. And just pray for them. You don't know what to say? Then just be silent and just pray in your mind. But we can do these next steps and impact the lives of these teenagers. God has entrusted us with them.